We begin the Gemara today on Daf Yudal Amud Beis, or a few lines from the bottom of the Yamud. The Gemara here continues the discussion regarding the machlokes of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. And the Gemara before brought the machlokes between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, Rav and Shmuel, whether Beis Shammai asa kedivreim or lo asa kedivreim, meaning that they paskin like Beis Hillel, and Beis Shammai also followed the psak halacha like Beis Hillel, or Beis Shammai followed through with their opinion and they did bepaya like their opinion. So before we were discussing regarding tzaras erve. According to Beis Shammai, tzaras erve is up for yibum or chalitza. It's not potter because of tzaras erve. Beis Hillel says tzaras erve is potter from yibum, and therefore she's mutter to go get married to whoever she wants. So the Gemara will bring another raya to this. Toshima, we learned in the Braisa. Right there, we're on the bottom of Yudal Amud Beis. So the Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Ha'eich halacha zu revachas bi Yisrael. How is this halacha regarding the tzaras erve fulfilled or widespread amongst Yidden? What do we do about this? Nasa kedivri Beis Shammai. Should we do like Beis Shammai says, to allow the tzaras erve for yivum, hala avlad mamzer l'divri Beis Hillel? But Beis Hillel says if you do this, the child is a mamzer. It's a isakaris. Nasa kedivri Beis Hillel. Should we follow Beis Hillel's opinion and allow her to get married to whoever she wants? Havalad pogel l'divri Beis Shammai. But Beis Shammai will say that because you were over a lav, she's supposed to do either yibum or chalitza. If she goes and gets married to someone else, so she was over a lav. So even if the vlad is not a mamzer, because it's only a issa lav, but the child will be a pogum. Pogum means blemished, that she can't get married to a kain, as Rashi here brings, and we'll see at the end of Daf Tezvav, where the Gemara brings the source that we learn out from an almana l'kain gadol, that even by a issa lav, the child is a chalal and can't get married to a kain. So therefore, what should we do? Sagt Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, Bayu v'nesaken lehem letzaris. Let's institute for these tzaris of the erve, shiur chaltzes v'loy misyavmes, that they should do chalitza, not yibum, and therefore that covers both opinions, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. According to Beis Shammai, they must do chalitza before getting married to anybody, or yibum, but at least chalitza is acceptable. And according to Beis Hillel, they can go and get married to whoever they want, but they can't do yibum, so therefore you'll do only chalitza. That was his idea. Like it says the Gemara, or the Braisa here, lo yispiku ligmar es hadavar. They did not have a chance to conclude this and to institute this, and there was a disturbance in that time, and it never got instituted. Only Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said to him, to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, about this idea, but it's not a good enough of idea, because man nasalem letzaris harishainis meyata. What are we going to do with tzaris prior to your idea, previous tzaris that followed Beis Shammai and did get married to the yavam, and the children are mamzerim? So now those children we're going to be left to leave them according to Beis Hillel a status of mamzerim. That was Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel's taina here. So now Gemara says, if you're going to say that Beis Shammai actually did follow through with their opinion, they allowed the tzaras erve to get married to a yavam, so haini tekama manase. Therefore, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is saying we have a problem. We have those tzaras rishainis that the tzaras did get married to a yavam, and the children would be mamzerim. How are we fixing that? But Eli Amrit lo yasu. But if you're going to say that Talmid Beis Shammai anyways did not fulfill what their opinion was because they paskened like Beis Hillel, so then Nasa. So what's Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel saying? What should we do about the past? There's nothing to worry about. The Talmidei Beis Shammai, this was their opinion, but they anyways didn't fulfill this. They didn't do it this way. So there's no issue. So why can't we just do what Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is saying? Let's be misakin to be yaitze both opinions. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak answers, Lo nitzrecha elo letzara atzma. The argument of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel was not that there's going to be a problem with the children of the tzaras erve that will be mamzerim. That wasn't his problem. His problem was regarding the very eitzah that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said regarding this tzaras erve, that we should do chalitza. So he had a problem with the eitzah regarding the tzaras erve herself. Uman nasa, and his argument was, what should we do about this? And hachikama, this is what he meant to say. Ha noch tzara is to Beis Hillel. So the tzaras erva, according to Beis Hillel. So what's Beis Hillel's opinion? They're mutter to get married to whoever they want. They're not. There's no yibum of at all. Li Beis Shammai. So now, according to Beis Shammai's opinion, if we want to incorporate Beis Shammai's chumrah, even according to Beis Hillel that says they can get married to whoever they want, and we're going to say, you know what? Let them do chalitza before they go get married to whoever they want. So heichi navid, what should we do lahu for them? Lech letzu. Should we also say that, you know what, do chalitza before you get married to whoever you want? But mimisa agavrayu, what's going to be regarding tzaris rishonis? Tzaris rishonis means these tzaris erva that were already noyig, they already behaved like Beis Hillel, and they already went and got married to someone. So now those tzaris, after we institute that you need chalitza to be yaitze Beis Shammai's opinion, we're going to go and tell them, oh, you have to do a chalitza now. What's going to happen? Mimiso agavrayu. Their husbands that they already got married to are going to be disgusted by this. Does it mean I got married to someone that was really still connected to someone else, and therefore you're requiring from her to do chalitza now? So therefore, even if your eitzah is a good eitzah going forward, that we should require at tzaras erva to have to do chalitza before she wants to get married to anybody, but what's with those that already got married to someone? Like Beis Hillel's opinion. After the fact, to require chalitza from this woman, the husband that's married to her will be disgusted by this. Now, if you argue and say, so they'll have a bad feeling about this. It'll be disgusting in their eyes. What can we do? But this is a good idea. This is the right thing to be yaitze Beis Shammai's opinion as well. So Gemara says, no, it's not a good thing because the ways of Torah are pleasant, the pathways of Torah are peaceful, and therefore we shouldn't make a takana institution in a way that it'll bring people a disgusting taste about the fact that they're married to such a wife. Toshema, the Gemara brings another braisa as a raya to this, that Beis Shammai students did follow through with their opinion. No, Rav Tarfon said, Ta'avani, I have a desire, or I have a yearning. Masai Tavai Tzaras Abbas Liyadi Veseno. When is it going to happen that the Tzaras Abbas, so apparently he had a daughter that was married to his brother, and there was a second wife, there was a tzara, and he says, when is this going to come to me and it's going to happen that Tzaras Abbas will be available for me for Yibum Veseno, and I'm going to do like my Rebbe, Shammai. Rav Tarfon was from the Talmidei Beis Shammai, and I'm going to do like the opinion of Beis Shammai, and I will get married to her. I will do Yibum for her. So what do I see here? I see clearly the Talmidei Beis Shammai followed through with their opinion. They didn't paskin like Beis Hillel. So the Gemara answers, Eime, you have to read the Braisa differently. Ve'asiyena. I will marry her off to someone else. I won't do Yibum. That I'm going to go and marry her off to someone else, like Beis Hillel's opinion. Fragt the Gemara, but he said that he's desiring, he's waiting when this is going to happen. I mean, if he's anyways doing like Beis Hillel, because you're saying that really Beis Shammai never followed through with their opinion. Everybody paskins like Beis Hillel, so what is he desiring over here? He's trying to make up a point. What kind of point is he making? It's pashut. Everybody paskins like Beis Hillel. Answers the Gemara, no, there is a point he wanted to make. La'afuke mit Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. To exclude of what Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri's Eitzah was before, that he said that we should be Eitzah, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel's opinion together, and we should have Chalitzah be done. But so he came and says, no, I'm waiting to make the point to show everybody that we do like Beis Hillel and we don't even need Chalitzah to be done. Tashema, another raya, Maise bebita shel Rabbi Gamliel. There was a story with the daughter of Rabbi Gamliel, Shaisa Nesuya la'Abba, that was married to Rabbi Gamliel's brother, Abba. Umeiz b'lei banim, he passed away without any children. V'yibim Rabbi Gamliel es tzarasa, and Rabbi Gamliel did do yibum for the tzara of this erve. It was his daughter, and he did chalitza. So you clearly see that he did like Beis Shammai's opinion. So it must be that Beis Shammai, even in practice, did like their opinion. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. How could this be a raya for Beis Shammai? V'tizbere, is this logical to bring proof from here? Rabbi Gamliel, Talmidei Beis Shammayu, is Rabbi Gamliel from the students of Beis Shammai. Rashi here brings Rabbi Gamliel was a grandson or Mibnei Banav of Hillel. So he's not in the camp of Beis Shammai either way. So there has to be another explanation of why this happened, that he did the Yibum for the Tzara of the Arva. Elo, so what's the answer? Shani bita Rabbi Gamliel. We must say that over there, that case is different. The islandess Havoy, that she was an islandess, and we learned before that if the erva is an islandess, so then the whole parsha of Yibum doesn't apply to her, and therefore the tzara of the erva you could do Yibum. That was the case over there, so it has nothing to do with what we're discussing here. Fragt the Gemara, how could you interpret that way? But mediktani seife, in the seife of that brayse there it says, Acherim say, Bitay Rabbi Gamliel, islandess haisa, that the daughter of Rabbi Gamliel was an islandess. So what do I see? Miklal Tanakama Savalav islandess haisa. The Tanakama that's reporting this story with the daughter of Rabbi Gamliel, she was not an islandess. And still, Rabbi Gamliel was mater, tzaras erve for Yibum. He was meyabimer. So that's only according to Beis Shamish's opinion. So how could you answer that even according to the Tanakama, she was an islandess? So the Gemara answers no. The Gemara here is going to give three answers. That there's a machlokes here between the Tanakama and Acherim regarding this. But certainly this is not a typical case of tzaras erve. There's something else going on over here. And here there's a machlokes between the Tanakama and Acherim. What exactly happened? So the Gemara's first answer is, the difference between the Tanakama and Rabbi Gamliel, both of them agree that the case over here was that this tzara was a tzara of an erva, which was an islandess. The Tanakama, however, says the case is that when he married her, he did not realize that she's an islandess, and therefore the whole marriage is a mekach tos. The whole thing is a mistake in the first place. In such a case, I say that the tzara of this erva, which is an islandess, you can do yibum with her, because the erva was never really married. That's the Tanakama's opinion. Then Acherim come to say islandess haisa. What does haisa mean? So Rashi says haisa means even if he didn't know from the beginning that he's marrying an islandess, it was not a mekach tos, but because she's an islandess and she can't have any children, he says that she's also not in the parasha of yibum b'chlal. And because she can't have any children. So therefore the tzara of this erva, which is an islandess, there's no yibum. So that's the only difference here between the Tanakama and Acherim regarding the story that happened there, whether it was a mekach tos or it was not a mekach tos, but nevertheless, for the tzara of an islandess, there is yibum. That's one interpretation. Another pshat to explain the difference between the Tanakama and Acherim here is konas ulu b'seif girish ikke benayu. The difference between them is regarding a case of konas ulu b'seif girish. We had this before in the Gemara. And that is that over here, what happened was that Rabbi Gamliel, or it was Rabbi Gamliel's brother that married his daughter. So he first married the erva, then he married a second wife. So there was a point in time where he was married to both of them together. And then afterwards he was megarish the erva, but he passes away now. Okay, so now the question is, do I say because he was megarish his erva before, and now he passes away, so now the tzara is not the tzara of an erva anymore? Or do I say, no, but there was a point in time where the tzara was the tzara of the erva. She was married to him when he was still married to the erva. So that's the case of kanas ulu b'seif girish. He marries the tzara while he's still married to the erva, and afterwards he divorces the erva, and then he passes away. That's the difference between the Tanakama and Acherim. According to the Tanakama, in such a case, there is no issue with the tzaras erva here, because he divorced her. Either was a point of time they were married together, it doesn't matter. But before he passed away, he already divorced the erva. So therefore for the tzara, there's yibum. That's what the Tanakama says. Acherim disagree. Acherim says because there was a point of time that they were married together, so therefore there still would not be any yibum where she's considered to be a tzaras erva. Therefore Acherim is adding, no, there has to be another point there that this erva was also an islandess. Third pshat the Gemara says, Iba yiseme yeshtnai b'biyah ikke b'nai. The machlokes over here is in a case where you make a tnai and then there's biyah. So as Rashi explains, this is a machlokes, this is a discussion in the Gemara in Ksubis, the Nigeya to a person that makes a condition with his wife before he marries her that she should not have a mum or she should not have a neder, and then it turns out after he marries her that she does have a mum and or there's a neder that she made. But he had a relation with her, there was biyah. Now the question is, do I say that because he made this t'nai, and the t'nai was not fulfilled, so therefore she had a mum, so the whole marriage is not a marriage b'chlal, the whole thing is a mekach tos? Or do I say, since he had a relation with her, so the Gemara in Ksubah says, there's a svara, eina d'maisi bilasa bilas nus. Once he had a relation with her, he definitely was meichel on whatever neder or mum there was, and therefore he's fully married to her. So the Tanakama here says that because there was a Tanai, so therefore it's not a marriage. So therefore, the tzara is not a tzara of this erva. This erva was never really married. The whole thing was a mekach toz. There was a t'nai, and the t'nai was not fulfilled. Whereas Acherim said, no, because he had a relation with her, because there was bia, it was a good marriage, and therefore you're going to have to find another reason how Rabbi Gamliel could do a yibum for the tzaras erva, and the reason is because she was also an islandess, as we explained before. Upon him, the point is that there's no raya from here that Beis Shammai followed through with their opinion b'poyel against Beis Shammai. Now the Gemara brings another raya, and here the Gemara is going to bring actually from a case which is a different machlokes of Beis Shammai. There will be a few different cases here of arguments between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel b'chlal. Not only over here regarding this case of tzaras erva, because this is a general shaila when you get to the machlokes of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, and the halacha b'poyel is like Beis Hillel. Did Beis Shammai still do like their opinion? So the Gemara Masav Rav Misharshi, so Rav Misharshi asked. It says in the Braisa, Maisa b'Rabbi Akiva. There was a story with Rabbi Akiva, Shelikit esrig be'echad b'shvat. He picked an esrig off the tree on Rosh Chodesh Shvat. V'nog boy beis yisurin. And he took Maiser from this esrig, two different Maisers. Echad kir divrei Beis Shammai, one to fulfill the opinion of Beis Shammai, ve'echad kir divrei Beis Hillel, and another to fulfill the opinion of Beis Hillel. So what is this talking about? So there's 2 points here. First of all, there's the machlokes of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel regarding the Rosh Hashanah li'ilanos. When is the Rosh Hashanah for trees? Beis Shammai says Rosh Chodesh Shvat. Beis Hillel says Chamishasa b'Shvat, the 15th day of Shvat. That's point 1. Point 2 is when it comes to the Maisres, so the second year and the third year of Shemitah is not the same Maiser when it comes to the Maiser Sheni. In the second year of Shemitah, you give Maiser Sheni. The third year of Shemitah, you give Maiser Oni instead of Maiser Sheni. So now he picked the esrog off the tree on Rosh Chodesh Shvat, and he gave 2 Maisres. He gave both Maiser Sheni, as if it like the second year, and also Maiser Oni, that it would be the next year already, the third year. So the question is, why did he give both of these Maisres? So what it seems to be saying here in the Brais is because he wanted to be Yaitze Beis Shammai's opinion and Beis Hillel's opinion. According to Beis Shammai, Rosh Chodesh Shvat is already the beginning of the third year. It's a new year. So therefore he gave the Maiser of the third year, which is Maiser Ani. According to Beis Hillel, it's before Chamishasa b'Shvat, it's still the second year. So he gave Maiser Sheni. So what do we see here? The point is that Rabbi Akiva was being Yaitze, the Maisres, Sai according to Beis Hillel's opinion and Sai according to Beis Shammai's opinion. So that shows that Beis Shammai fulfilled the Poyel according to their opinion over here regarding the Maisres. So the Gemara continues, Shma Mina, Asu Rabbi Akiva, Shma Mina Asu, sorry. So Shma Mina, we see over here that we must say that Beis Shammai did like their opinion. That's why Rabbi Akiva was trying to be Yaitze, Beis Shammai's opinion. Answers the Gemara, no, the Pshara is different. We only do like Beis Hillel. But Rabbi Akiva Gemara istapekle. The Messiah of the 2 opinions, who held what? That was his suffix. V'lo yada, and he didn't know, I Beis Hillel be'echad b'Shvat omer? Was it Beis Hillel that said that the Rosh Chodesh, or the Rosh Hashanah rather, for the trees, is on Rosh Chodesh Shvat, or b'Tezvav b'Shvat omer? Or is it Beis Hillel that said that it's on the 15th day of Shvat? So he wanted it, he was paskening only like Beis Hillel, not like Beis Shammai. But he had a suffix, who said what, and therefore he had to be Yaitze according to both of the versions that he heard regarding when the Rosh Hashanah is. Another ayah is like the Gemara Masav Mazutre. Mazutre asked, Maisa. It was a story, V'yolda Kalasa Shel Shammai, the daughter-in-law of Beis Shammai gave birth, Shammai Zaken that is, Upiches Esamaziv, he went and removed the plaster of the roof over the baby's head, the Sichech al Gabi Mita, and he placed schach there over the bed of the baby, b'shvul cotton, for the baby. So what do we see over here? So this is Beis Shammai's opinion. Beis Shammai says that you have to have, even for a cotton, hatzarech le'imay, even a baby so young that still needs the mother, still there's a mitzvah of sukkah. There's actually machlokes achrayim when it says here b'shvul cotton, what it's talking about. In the simple pshat of the Gemara, it seems to be speaking about the baby that was born, which is a huge chiddush. Even a baby, mamash a day old, should be chayiv in the chinuch of the mitzvah of sukkah. Chinuch only begins at an older age, even according to Beis Shammai. So the Marshaler says, b'shvul cotton does not refer to this baby born, it refers to another child that was tzarech li'imay, that was together with the mother when the baby was born, a child that's, let's say, 4 or 5 years old. But the Pnei Yeshua actually says, like the simple pshat here, that b'shvul cotton means Shammai Azakin made a sukkah mamash for the day-old baby. And the reason, one of the pshatim he says is, because the point of Beishamai's opinion is, has to be teshva kein taduru. You have to live in the sukkah the way you live in the house. So even though the baby himself is not chayav in sukkah, but because the mother, the father rather, has to be in the sukkah together with his family, so therefore, teshva kein taduru, you make a sukkah even for a day-old baby. So what do you see from here? Shmami nos. So we see Shammai Azakin followed through with their opinion, and they did this way with Payal. And says the Gemara, Hasam, no, there it's different. Someone that sees that Shammai Azakin opens up the roof to put tzchach there for the baby, he's not going to think that he's doing it for the mitzvah of sukkah. It's just going to look like he wants to air out the place for the benefit of the baby. But lav dafka that he's doing his opinion. So in other words, the pshat over here is, Gemara is now basically saying that the issue of allowing Shammai or Beis Shammai to follow through with their opinion, even though we paskin like Beis Hillel, is because it should be, going back to what we learned before, loises gaidedu. Shouldn't be too titus. People shouldn't see that Klal Yisrael is divided into different groups. But if it's not for that problem, then there's no issue for Beis Shammai to be machmer like their opinion, even after we paskin like Beis Hillel. So over here, they can be machmer like their own opinion, and it won't look like two groups, because people won't think that he's doing it for the mitzvah of sukkah. Masav Mazutre brought a raya from another halacha, where it says as follows: Maisa b'sheikis Yehu sha'isa b'Yerushalayim. There was a story with a sheikis, a trough of Yehu that was in Yerushalayim. So this trough, as Rashi says, was this big stone that was carved out, and it had space for water inside, and it was less amount of the shiur of a mikveh. The minimum amount you need for a mikveh is 40 saw of water, and it wasn't that size for a mikveh. But still, but it had a hole in it that was open to a mikveh that's right in the side of it. All the pure kalim that they had in Yerushalayim, nasam al gaba, they would use it by toiveling it in this trough. Because it's, even though it itself is not a kosher mikveh, but as the halacha always is by a mikveh, if there's a shokeh, if it's attached through a hole to a kosher mikveh, it becomes a kosher mikveh. Shalchu Beis Shammai, and Beis Shammai sent and said regarding this little mikveh here, and that they said that you have to do something else. V'herchivuha. And Beis Shammai said you have to broaden, you have to open up the opening between this trough and the mikveh that's near it. You have to open it up, that it should be wider open. Why? Should be Shammai Yomerim, because Beis Shammai's opinion is you can't just rely on a hole between the mikveh and this other pool of water here. It has to be acheti pasach beruba. The separation between the kosher mikveh and the non-kosher mikveh has to be when most of the wall is opened up between them. Just a hole of like a size of a tube, as we'll see soon, according to the opinion of Beis Hillel, is not enough. So therefore Beis Shammai says you have to widen it. Now, what's Beis Hillel's opinion? It's not, you learned there in the Mishnah, Erev mikvahs, to mix mikvahs. In other words, you have one bar that's a kosher mikveh and another one that's not. In order to mix them, what's the size that you need? There's a hole in between them. Kishvei feres hanoid. Like the tube that there is of a noid, of a flask, the thickness of this tube and together with the width of the inside of it. And how thick is this? Kishtei et spice. The thickness of the size of 2 fingers, but chayzres l'mekayman. You have to have the size of 2 fingers, not that you stick it in tightly, but that there's some room to maneuver and to rotate your fingers inside this hole. That's the size that you have to have. So what do you see here? Beis Hillel's opinion is if you just have a hole like the size of a tube of 2 fingers in between the kosher and not kosher mikveh, it's good enough. Beis Shammai says that you have to open it up more. Most of it has to be broken open. And we see that Beis Shammai sent to fulfill like their opinion to be machmer, to open it up. Shmami no. So what I see from here is also that Beis Shammai did follow through with their own opinion. Answers the Gemara. There again, the same point. Hasam over there. Haraya oimer. Someone that's going to see that Beis Shammai is being machmer like their opinion will say la fushi mayu de kavet. That he's just doing it because he wants more water to flow in. He's not doing it for the purpose to be machmer like their opinion. So it doesn't look like that they're paskening like not like Beis Hillel. So there's no issue of leisis gaidedu, that it's like too titus, and therefore this is not a problem. Sagt the Gemara weiter Toshma, another raya. The Omer Rabbi Elazar bar Tzadik. When I was learning Torah by Rabbi Yochanan Achirani, which as we'll see was one of the Talmidim of Beis Shammai. So what happened? I saw it was a year of a hunger, and he had very little to eat. He was eating a little bit of dry bread together with salt. So Basi vaidaiti esaba. So I went and I let my father know about his situation. Amali, so he told me, here, go bring him these olives to eat. I went and I brought him the olives. He noticed, he saw that these olives are moist. Amali, so he told me, Rabbi Yechanan HaChairani told me, I don't want to eat from these olives. So this Gemara here is based on the halacha regarding tumah and tara. When it comes to produce, in order for produce to even be susceptible to tumah, which is what's called to be mukhshir lekabel tumah, it has to come in contact with a liquid, one of the 7 mashkin. One of them being water, obviously, or oil. If it comes in contact to water or oil, so then, only then does it become susceptible to tumah. But if it never became wet, it was always dry, it's not susceptible to tumah. Another detail on this halacha is when it comes in contact to this liquid to be susceptible to tumah, that's only if it came in contact with this liquid with the agreement of the owner of these fruits or this produce. If he didn't want it to come in contact with this liquid, if it's against his will, so then it still will not be susceptible, it won't be mukhshir lekabel tumah. So basically what Rabbi Yechanan HaChairani was saying is, once he saw that these olives were moist, they were moist from the oil that was there with them, and as Rashi says, these olives were inside an earthenware vessel or earthenware barrel, and this earthenware vessel can very easily become tummy from an ama'aretz that's touching it, and then the olives that are now wet, that are inside of it, will also become tamei. So he didn't want to eat it because he was afraid that it became tamei. Amali, so he said, Rabbi Yechanan HaChairani said, I don't want to eat these olives. So what happened? I came and I told my father that he rejected the offer. Amali, so my father told me, wait, you can tell him that it did not become mukhshir lekabel tumah even though it's wet. Why? Go and tell him chavis nekuva haisa, that this barrel that the olives were inside had holes in the bottom. El shesasmu shmarim, it got clogged up because of the sediment, so the oil wasn't coming out. But really, it had holes in the bottom. Now, what's the significance of these holes in the bottom? So, as I said before, the halacha is that if the produce gets wet, but the owner does not want it to be wet, so then it does not become susceptible to tumah. So if it's made with holes in the bottom, which means it's made that the oil should flow out, and not that the olives itself should become wet, so therefore the fact that they were wet, they were moist, doesn't matter. Because again, it's not his desire, it's not within his agreement that it should be wet, and therefore it does not become susceptible to tumah. So in other words, go tell him that because it has holes in the bottom, don't worry about the fact that it was wet, because it's still not susceptible to tumah. Now, the Gemara will explain over here and point out that he went to tell him that it had holes in the bottom, it's only according to Beis Hillel that requires there to be holes in the bottom for it not to become tamei. Beis Shammai says in such a case, even without holes in the bottom, it became wet from the oil that was there, it still would not be susceptible to tumah. Let's see. Tanan, and we learned in the Mishnah Machlekes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel about this. Chavis shel zeisim ugulgalim. If you have a barrel of olives that are all pressed together, and what happens when they're pressed together? So there's oil that oozes out from them. Beis Shammai says, Ein tzricha lenekev. You don't need it to be in a barrel that has holes in the bottom, which makes it clear that the owner is not interested in having this oil here, in order for it not to be susceptible to tumah. Even if there's no holes in the bottom and there's a bunch of oil that's oozed out from the olives, and seemingly it has that oil, that liquid that should make it susceptible to tumah, it still will not be susceptible to tumah. Why not? So this is a very interesting thing, because the oil that comes out of the olives does not necessarily have the status of oil. If it's being pressed for oil, yeah, that's oil. But if you just have olives tightly packed together in a barrel and there's juice that's oozing out of it, that does not have a halacha of oil. You're not using it for oil. It's just juice oozing out. Juice, any kind of fruit juice, including olive juice, that's the status that it has in this case, is not one of the 7 mashkin that will make produce susceptible to tumah. Oil is one of them, but juice is not one of them. So in such a case, Beis Shammai's opinion is, you don't want it as oil, it's just juice oozing out of it, it does not have the status of oil at all. Beis Hillel say, no, it does have the status of oil, and therefore it's tzricha lenekev. The only way this juice that's oozing out of it, which is oil, will not make it susceptible to tumah is if the barrel has holes at the bottom, which makes it clear that you don't want this oil at all to be here, and therefore it's considered to be olives that got wet, not with your will, not with your agreement. and therefore it's not tummy, as I explained before. So the point is, here you have the machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel with these oils packed, with these olives that is packed inside a barrel, whether it has to have holes in the bottom in order for it not to be susceptible to tumah. Umaydem Beis Hillel that is agree she'im nikva v'sasmua shmarim she'itahira, that if you have a barrel that has holes at the bottom and it got clogged up with sediments, so because there were those holes there in the beginning, so it's still going to be toir. It's not considered to be susceptible to tumah, even though it got clogged up now, but it wasn't your desire to keep those oil inside. So this is according to Beis Hillel. Okay, so the point is, going back to the story before with Rabbi Yochanan HaChairani, the Gemara now says, "Va'afal pi shetalmid Shammai hoya." Even though Rabbi Yochanan HaChairani was a student from Shammai, and over here in this case, Shammai was mekel. Shammai said that even without any holes in the barrel whatsoever, the juice that oozes out of the olives do not make it susceptible to tumah. Nevertheless, kol ma'asav le'asa el k'divrei Beis Hillel. All of his actions he did only like Beis Hillel, meaning he was machmer here like Beis Hillel that says that if it has no holes, the juice oozing out of the olives is oil and will make it susceptible to tumah. And therefore, you have to go ahead and tell him that it really had holes in the bottom, it just got clogged up with the sediments, and that's why it does not become susceptible to tumah. But he was machmer like Beis Hillel. This is the end of the story. Now the Gemara says, if you're going to say that Beis Shammai followed through with their opinion and they behaved like this in practice, so that's the Chiddush. Rabbi Yochanan HaChairani, he was from the Talmidim of Beis Shammai, and they all followed the kula of their own opinion. Nevertheless, he was machmer like Beis Hillel. But if you're going to say that in all the machlokes of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, once they paskin like Beis Hillel, he did not follow through. Beis Shammai did not follow through with their opinion. What's the chiddush over here in this story about Rabbi Yochanan HaChairani that he was machmer like the opinion of like Beis Hillel? Everyone did like Beis Hillel always. So this is a raya. The Gemara doesn't have an answer to this raya, but the Gemara carries on to bring another raya. Toshama Shalus Rabbi Shua. They asked Rabbi Shua the question, going back to the case that we're speaking about over here, the tzara of an erva. Do you do yibum, or is she mutter to get married to anybody? Tzara sabas mahu. What's the halacha? The tzara of a bas, the other wife is a daughter, which is an erva. Amalahem. So he answered, Rabbi Shua answered, machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. This is a machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. So they asked him, v'halacha k'divrei mi, who do we paskin like? So he told them, why are you asking me and bringing my head between these two big mountains here, these two big arguments here, between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel? I'm afraid that he could crush my skull if I'm going to come and paskin like one and not the other. But then he said, I can say testimony to you, two large families in Yerushalayim, which is Mishpachas Beis Tzfuim ben Achmoi or Mishpachas Beis Kufoi ben Mekaishish, these two families, Sheheim b'nei tzarais, that they are children from a tzara of an erve that went and did like Beis Hillel and got married to somebody else without yibum and without chalitza, like Beis Hillel's opinion that for a tzara of an erva there's no yibum or chalitza. Umehem kainim gedolim, and from them there are kainim gedolim v'shimshu al gabei mizbeach, and they served on the mizbeach. That I can testify for you that they did like Beis Hillel and they served in the mizbeach. Okay, we'll see soon. The Gemara is going to explain the connection between the two parts of the Braisa here. It starts off saying that they asked him if the halacha is like Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel regarding the tzara of the erva. Could she marry someone else? Does she do yibum? And then when he answers, Meyedani, he's saying testimony about the children of the tzara of this erva that followed like Beis Hillel. If you follow like Beis Hillel, even according to Beis Shammai, that's only allowed. So what should be the issue? For the children, if it's just children that are married from the father, the mother that did a lav, it shouldn't be any issue with the children. So the Gemara will explain this in a moment. Okay, but now the Gemara comes back to the subject that we're discussing over here. Did Beis Shammai do in practice like their opinion or not? So the Gemara, Bish leima also, if you're going to say that Beis Shammai did do in practice like their opinion, so therefore Rabbi Shua was afraid to paskin one way or another. But if you're going to say that Beis Shammai did not bepoil do like their own opinion, they did like Beis Hillel, so might come a misyareni. Why is he afraid to paskin between them? Okay, but the Gemara now presses on and asks, wait a minute, even if it's true that they did, that Beis Shammai did do like their own opinion, but my misyareni. Still, you should ask the question, why would Rabbi Yeshua be afraid to paskin over here? The point here the Gemara is going to explain is that the main thing that Rabbi Yeshua was so afraid and he said that they're going to come and crush my skull is because, according to Beis Hillel, what Beis Shammai is saying is telling you to go and do Yibum, which according to their opinion is Mamash Isakaris, and the children of Mamzedim. So this is what he was afraid of. That if I'm going to paskin like Beis Hillel, so then Beis Shammai is going to come and crush my skull because you're saying that our children are Mamzedim. So then that the Gemara asks, but not according to Rabbi Yeshua. According to Rabbi Yeshua, this is not an issue because Rabbi Yeshua said, and we had this before, that a mamzer is only a child born from a relationship that was a chiv Mrs. Bezdin, not from a chiv Koris. So therefore, why was he so afraid that they're going to come and crush the skull if there's anyways no din of a mamzer here? So the Gemara says, okay, but nehi nami de mamzer lo yhave, even if the child is not going to be a mamzer, but pogum yhave, but the child will be a pogum. What's a pogum? He's a blemished child. That means that he can't get married to a kohen. How do I know that a child can't get married to a kohen? Even if the child is born from a Issa Lav or from a Issa Kodesh and not from a Issa Mrs. Bedin, which according to Rabbi Yeshua is the only case that you become a mamzer. I learned this with a kavachaymer from an almana that got married to a kohen gadol. And an almana is allowed to get married to any kohen hedyot, but not to a kohen gadol. So now ma almana she'eni surah noeg b'choil, the isser of an almana marrying a kohen gadol is not a common isser that's noeg by everybody. It's a unique isser. It's a limited kind of a isser that's only noeg for a kohen gadol. So it's a lesser isser in that sense. But nevertheless, b'no pogum. The halach is the child becomes a cholol. The child cannot marry. The child is a cholol. Zu she'isura shava b'koil chulu. So over here, when we're talking about the isser of this tzaras erve that got married l'shuk, and according to Beis Shammai, this is a isser lav. Or the reverse, according to Beis Hillel, when this tzaras erve got married to the Yavam, and you were over a sakaris, which is an issa that's naig by everybody, for sure, but not pogum. For sure, the halacha should be, when we're holding here on the side. So this was the shaila, where that the child should be a pogum. Okay, so the point is that the reason why Rabbi Yeshua did not want to get involved in this is because Rabbi Yeshua did not want to paskin a halacha which will make the children to be pogum. Okay, that's why he was afraid that they're going to come and smash his skull and say, you're making our children to be in pogum, to be a chalal. But the issue was not that because Beis Shammai did like their opinion, that was not the point of here. Going back before, because that it would be a Issa Kodesh according to Beis Shammai. But the point is that even if it's an Issa Lav, it would also be an issue. Sagt the Gemara, now going back to the Braisa itself, Kobo minei tzaris v'kaposhet le b'nei tzaris. The question that he was asked in the beginning is, what's the halacha regarding the tzara herself? Does she get married to a yavam? Does she get married to whoever? Like Beis Hillel's opinion, the kaposhet le b'nei tzaris. And then he comes and he says, I'll tell you testimony regarding the children of the tzaris. Why is he giving that as an answer if that's not what he was asked? And over there, according to Beis Shammai, that's just a Issa Lav. So it's not, what's the big question about that? So the Gemara says, Tartika ba'amine. The truth is, there were two questions that were asked for him. Tzarais, first question they were asking him was regarding the tzara herself. The machlokes of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, who do you paskin like? And then they asked him, V'im timtzaloi ma tzarais ke Beis Hillel, that regarding tzarais, we paskin like Beis Hillel, b'nei tzarais, the Beis Hillel, le Beis Shammai mahu. These tzarais that are doing, according to Beis Hillel, that they're getting married to anybody without yibum and without chalitza, according to Beis Shammai, what's going to be the status with the children? Because according to Beis Shammai, the tzara by getting married to anybody without yibum and chalitza was over on a lav, that you're not allowed to go and get married to anybody without chalitza. So that was the second question they asked him. So the Gemara says, L'may nafkimina. Why did they ask him this question if in the end we anyways paskin like Beis Hillel? So the Gemara says, Lemifshat, because this is a question. What's really the question here? The question is, you being over a lav, and the question is, will the children that are born from this relationship that you are over a lav, will they be puzzled? Do they become a challah? Do they become puzzled to kahuna or not? That was really the essence of the question here. And therefore this has relevance for other cases where there's a lav. Lemifshat, this is to be paishid, Vlad machze grushasei lebeisilo. The child of a person that was machze grushasei. He was over a lav. He divorced his wife and she got remarried to someone else. And now he remarried her. So that's a lav. So the question is, the child born from this lav, what's going to be the halacha? Lebeisilo, according to Beisilo, Mika Mirinon, do we say Uma the Kavachaimer? Do we say the following Kavachaimer? Uma Almana Lekoyin Gadol. The Kavachaimer that the Gemara said before. Just like when it comes to an Almana by a Koyin Gadol. She'eni Surah Shava Bakail. This is not an Isser that's equal by everybody, but not Pogum. So the Koyin Gadol got married to an Almana. It's a lav. The child is Pogum, can't get married to any Koyin. So over here, that according to Bisil, she went and she got married to anybody. So this is an Issa that is Shava Bakoil. Shebena Pogom, so now according to Beis Shammai, this son is a Pogom. Over here, what are we talking about over here? We're talking about Machze Grushasai, that he did a lav. And this is the Issa of Machze Grushasai is the Issa that Shava Bakoil. And the child that's born from this, the child should also be a Pogom. And it didn't should be no pogum, so for sure the same halacha should apply that the child should be a pogum. That's one side, like we said before already. Why was this a question? Because then we can say differently. Oidilme, or maybe we can't compare to the case of Almana L'Koyin Gadol. Ikele Bifrach, we can refute this Kavachaimer. Ma'ala Almana, by Almana we see that there's a bigger chumrah. Shehi Atzma Mischaleles. An Almana that gets married to a Koyin Gadol, it's not only her child that becomes a chalal or a chalala, but even she herself becomes a chalala. As Rashi here brings, it's learned from the pasuk Le'echal Zarai Be'amav, and the Ba'amav goes on the wife, that she becomes a chalala, and now she can't get married to any Koyin, and it's even a Koyin Hedyet. Or Rashi says, if she was a Bas Koyin, and she was over this lav and she got married to an almana, usually a Bas Koyin can eat from Truma. After this, she can't eat from Truma anymore. She becomes mischalal. So we see there's an additional chumrah regarding this almana L'Koyin Gadol, that she herself becomes a halala, so maybe her children become a halala as well. But who says, I could apply that to every single lav, whether it's a lav of Machze Grushasai, or whether it's the lav of Loisia Eishes HaMeisa Chutza, getting married without chalitza, so maybe it's not compared. And on this, Rabbi Yeshua answered, Tzarais, regarding your first question, you're asking me regarding the Tzara herself, whether she can get married to anybody, or she needs Yibram or Chalitza, Misyari Ani. That I'm afraid to answer, because this is going to get into a big question over here, between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, whether the children are pogum or not. That I'm not going to answer. B'nei tzarais, but I could tell you regarding b'nei tzarais, ani meid lechem, I can tell you testimony that I know for a fact that there were these families that were kainim gedolim. So that I could answer you. Toshema, the Gemara now says, I'll bring you a raya, going back to our original question, whether Beis Shammai followed through with their opinion or not. So here it says clearly in this B'raisa, b'meid Abdeisa ben Horkenes, Hutra tzaras abbas lachen. In the times of Abdeisa ben Horkenes, he said they were matter, or he was matter, that the tzaras abbas, the tzara of an erve, should and could get married for yibum to the brother, like the opinion of Beis Shammai. Shma mina, so I see from here also that Beis Shammai did like their opinion. And in fact, Abdeisa ben Horkenes in his time was matter this. So Shma mina, this is a conclusive raya that Beis Shammai did in practice do like their opinion.